This is Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. Future Sense Now is brought to you by the Futures Forum. Stay tuned for a journey to the futures of women with host Dr. Claire Nelson.
Greetings and welcome to Future Sense Now, an online e-zine of the Futures Forum. I am Claire Nelson and your travel guide, if you will, on this exploration of the future. So it is March 2017 and we're celebrating Women's History Month with an exploration into what I call the future history of women. Specifically, we're looking at the year 2030 and beyond. So why am I choosing 2030? Well, the world has a huge agenda for 2030. Specifically, we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, of which SDG 5 in particular talks about equality for women and girls, empowering all women and girls, ending all forms of discrimination, and a lot of targets which goes on and on. But the question I would like to know is, what does all of this mean realistically? What would life in 2030 actually look like? And so today, on today's conversation on the futures of women, we're going to explore this future with one of my fellow future travelers, and her name is Cornelia Daheim. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, you are. I'm reacting.
My gosh,
it's me. It's fine.
Daheim, I feel so good. So I'm really happy to have her. So let me tell a little bit about my guest. So the last 15 years, Cornelia has led Foresight projects for renowned companies and institutions in Germany and internationally. She's now the proud manager, if you will, of Future Impacts Consulting, and previously worked with Z-Punk, which is a well-known Foresight company. So, without further ado, I should also add, she is the chair of and founder of the German of the Millennium project. So she's been really deeply steeped in these global conversations. So, without further ado, let me welcome Cornelia. Greetings. How are you? Welcome to Future Sense Now.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on, and I think it's great that at this time we are looking at the future of women. Well.
Yes. So, I don't know where you were on January 20th, but the world over there seems to have been a shockwave with women. Well, first of all, American women converged on Washington, D.C., where I am, and they were added by supporters around the world. They took to the streets to protest the vision of America as proposed by the new establishment. And then there was another shockwave when Hillary Clinton said, the future is female. Now, many of us in this space have been saying this for some time. Question: where were you and what do you think when you hear the future is female?
I was working in a workshop with a customer, as mostly, so I couldn't make it on the streets, but it was interesting to see, I think, so from the outside. Here in Germany, there were also some marches. I don't know if that news made it up to your place. I think the shockwave sort of rippled over. So we have watched what's happening around there. And for me personally, it was a shock as well. But I think what was good around it is that it created a sort of wakening up of what you could say is like a dormant feminist movement, and the younger generation becoming more politicized again. And so this is at least what I am witnessing. And on the other hand, I also wanted to mention to you that for me it felt a lot like an old prognosis had somehow become true. I don't know if you're aware of the Susan Faludi book from Backlash.
No.
It's from 1991, and it was a major success, you could say, from feminist writing at that time. Very influential for me because it was that first time I came into contact with feminist theory seriously. And Susan Faludi is a very well-known, renowned US American journalist. And at that time, there was not much talk around feminism. So it wasn't a high time of feminism, you could say. Mm-hmm. But she argued and made very good cases that there's sort of a hidden backlash against women coming up, and that we are at risk of a backlash hitting us.
A
Sorry?
couple years ago, I was speaking to a Nigerian woman, and she was saying that in Nigeria there was an increasing rise in hate crime against women. And she was wondering if, in a rush to adopt a more, let's say, feminist agenda in Africa, they had not given up some things that were working for them. And so she was trying to come up with a new model which says, okay, how can we kind of reclaim some of what worked for us, but still have women having more rights? And so I guess we're now in the valley of the sine curve that's still trending upwards,
Yes.
but it has a way to go before it can trend. But the question is, so if we're looking at 2030 and the future, and well, Germany has a woman president. Britain has a woman prime minister. Even Jamaica, where I'm from, has had a woman prime minister. Um, what does it say for the future of women globally if America, which has supposedly set the trend, seems to be so far behind politically when it comes to women? What do you think the future looks like? Do you think that this might actually create a curveball for other countries, or do you think that other countries will continue to move forward? What is your thought on that?
I think it depends on, to make a basic point right here at the beginning, on the future we want to create. So it's open, it's not set in stone. And all of these sides you can interpret one way or the other. You can say there's a neoconservationist backlash movement in many Western countries. You can say they have persistent problems in many of the developing economies for many indicators we see for women worldwide. Or you can twist the data around and say, look, we have made so much progress and we have these positive role models now and this change. And for me, I think to take a more hopeful stance is always the one that is more empowering. So I try whatever frustration I might keep having. Yeah? And I see, disappointingly enough, in my work where I work with leadership in large corporations or ministries or so on, a lot still of the male model, the patriarchal model persisting in these circles. So I see this every day. Huh?
But
And
Europe, but in
but
Europe,
I think it's critical that we decide the stance we want to take. And I think there is an opportunity now for change. And this, for me, builds on the hope I put on the younger generation also, where I witness, at least around here, I cannot speak for the developing nations because I haven't worked and lived there long enough in any way. But for here, there's a young generation coming up which has a very open and participative and empowering view to gender and sex and women's issues.
and
So
do you
I
think
do
that
have
then
this
in
hope.
yeah, so are you thinking then in terms of this idea of by 2030 ending all forms of discrimination? Certainly from a European context, we see that women's work are valued. Women's role as a mother is valued in the sense that you have a maternity leave process. So do you think, as you think about the future, for example, where we're talking about more automation, more artificial intelligence, um, increasing unemployment. Certainly, in developed countries, there's also unemployment on the other side. um, do you see then perhaps um, a shifting of 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 women's roles in a sense that could probably give life to this idea the future is female? In other words, what is your sense of what it means when we say the future is female? What does that mean?
I mean, for me personally, I think the first targets we have are these UN SDG targets you mentioned. Huh? So that would be a global perspective to take. And there's many of the basic work still to be done in terms of education, access, healthcare access, access to voting, women in parliament, and so on. So there's lots of these basics to be covered, and there's lots of work around this. But again, looking at more the European perspective, where I can speak with more in-depth knowledge, there is, I think, at the moment an opening where we sort of recreate also society. You've mentioned these topics around work, and I think that's one of the critical notions that's at the moment reshaping society. So we have this whole debate around automation, robotics, the synergy of technologies coming together. That might mean that a lot of work is being automated, which can, of course, first of all, lead to more unemployment, but basically poses a question that we haven't seen posed before in the last years about how we want to redistribute income. how we
Mm-hmm.
want people to work. So the whole basic income movement has become here a sort of mainstream accepted notion. And I remember 10 years ago, I checked in my in my calendar. I was nearly kicked out of a CEO meeting around new issues, emerging issues coming up when I mentioned the basic income as a topic that would rise in importance. It was 10 years ago still unspeakable in those circles of power.
Mm-hmm.
And now it has risen to the mainstream. That doesn't mean we have implemented it. We only have these pilots and so on, but we are raising this to a new level of awareness. And that means it's symbolic of a debate around how do we organize our society. And that touches about so many women's issues around how is work distributed, how is unpaid work recognized and rewarded, and so on. And I think there's an opening now to reorganize how we do this. And
Well,
that
that's
especially this younger generation again is pushing for change, and that this can be very beneficial for women, and that they could actually lead this turnaround to more towards a more just society.
well, certainly, that's a way of looking at it in terms of basic income as one sort of a one sort of a, let's say,
Solution.
marker. This, so we're saying perhaps this idea that work can be measured in a different way and value can be measured in a different way. So the basic
Yes.
income could be, let's say, a female idea as opposed to
Hmm.
be, in other words, this idea is the female as a surrender as opposed to an aggressor. That's just an
Hmm.
idea. So another goal that comes up, or target, I should say, that comes up in this goal for the Sustainable Goals 2030, it says about effective participation and equal opportunities at all levels of political, economic, and public life. So we know in Germany you have a president or a chancellor, president in the U.S. context, prime minister in the Caribbean context, who is a woman. Now, is that let's say an anomaly, or do you find across the whole political structure women are active, and is that trending towards, let's say, a more equal gender being active politically at all levels of German society? And also, as you think about that, could you also comment on what's happening in terms of corporations and corporate boards, which seems to be the last bastion? What is happening, and what you think might evolve in the future in that regard?
Yeah, I think looking at the phenomenon of Angela Merkel, she has been a breakthrough for us women here in the area, and maybe even beyond Germany. And we have to be aware she is not an expression of the average trend, and then it was just her who made it, but she personally made it. And she made it to a very still persistent glass ceiling, even in politics. We have okay shares, not the worst in Europe here in Germany and so on, but we still have a big gender gap in leadership. And she made it through in a very traditional party also.
Mm.
So it is an exceptional story, and I think an exceptional breakthrough that she achieved. And you could also see in the debates around it how traditional notions of women and looking differently at women and versus men dominated the debate. There was an analysis once looking at how nearly the majority of articles on Angela Merkel's chancellorship at the beginning looked at what she wore and how her hair was cut. So a very traditional notion of what's important about people, women, dominated the public debate until at a certain point, and I think this helped a lot in Germany, people started saying, look, we cannot always talk about her haircut. We have to talk about the other. So, but it was a process that needed happening still. It was necessary that we went through this process, and that's because we weren't far enough yet. So she has changed a lot, I think, and I hope it is symbolic and will lead a change in this direction, but we still have also a long way to go. We have in Europe a persistent gender gap in many indicators when you look across work. There's a gender pay gap, there's gaps in the hours worked, there's more part-time work, and that also means often more precarious work for women. And as you are asking about the leadership, this is a score where we are especially bad in Germany. So that's what I was also alluding to in what I see every day in my work. that we have a particularly bad gender gap in leadership in Germany. So it's a very traditional society. I think that's also, if you want to take a more differential view, we have good conditions here overall compared to many countries, I'm well aware, but we still have very traditional ideas about women. So the traditional role models are still very persistent.
So 2030, is it unreasonable to say that Germany will certainly be at least 100% better than you are today in terms of leadership percentage wise? You think that Germany will sort of take the UN SDGs as a real mandate to push forward in terms of the women's movement, the different women's organizations, to really push forward increasing roles in leadership in, say, corporate Germany and political Germany?
I'm not sure whether we in Germany can really take so much the lead. I would hope that it's a European movement. And I'm not sure how good really we can score in Germany. We have to catch up in many respects. If you compare to Finland and so on, many Scandinavian countries, but also Lithuania, so Estonia, and in many indicators we are scoring worse. So I don't know if we can assume that Germany will take the lead, but I would hope Europe can. So Europe can really push forward, and I think we are at a moment where there's an increased sensibility, a better reflection in the debates and in the notions around these gender issues that still made in this work area, especially it difficult to achieve really equal opportunities. And again, there's the new generation entering the workforce. And they have very distinct ideas, and they will not budge, I think. They are really implementing another way of working, another way of looking at gender attribution of tasks also. And I think until 2030 we can achieve this if we keep fighting. I mean, it's not going to by itself automatically fix the problem. We have to keep working for this. But I really think that there's a turnaround moment now, and especially with this younger generation who just think it's clear there has to be more equal opportunities and a more equal distribution, and who actually I've seen also in my own leadership roles that it's especially the younger who say, where are the women? Why are they not here? We have to take care of this. So for them, it's ingrained in their thinking. And this, I hope, is a lever for pushing for more rapid change than we have seen. Because if we keep up with the development we have had, we will also be too slow in Europe. So we have to speed up even. But there's an opportunity, I think, if we leverage really the younger generation.
On that note, one of the things I wanted to think about, we tend to think about women as if to say this issue of women is separate from other agendas, right? And so I want us to look at then all other global issues. So there's issues around the planet, how we share space, how we share biodiversity, water, energy. There's issues about the rule book, international trade, pandemics. Which of those global challenges would you say you personally think about? And then in relation to women in the future, which of those do you think women might have a particular agenda or would want to take a particular role in driving forward? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very interesting point you're making. There's in gender and feminist theory, there's the whole perspective of intersectionalism, basically saying we cannot look at only one aspect here, or not only at gender, but we have to look also at race and at all the other fields, and we have to go into those. That's a thinking that I think can help a lot, because we are tackling on a global scale increasingly complex, interwoven problems. And if we are only standing there saying, like, and now here we are with the women's issue, it's not working. It has to cut across the fields.
Exactly.
So totally agreed on this. And I think one area where I would like to at least know more about, maybe there is work, but I'm just not so aware, is the climate change issue, because we will see the effects, even if we make the 2-degree target now that we have. There's still very much work to do to even achieve this target, even with the Paris Agreement. It is clear that the hardest effect will be on the poorest countries. And there again, you have strong gender disparities, and usually the women are the most hardest hit then by any conflict that happens. And to look at these factors and also the role women can play to deal with these effects and to create resilient solutions to climate change in these regions, which will most probably be hardest hit. I think that's a topic I have not heard so much about, and that will come up and that we need to tackle.
Yes, I've been thinking about this. So let's look at that. So you, as a futurist, I don't know, are there a lot of women futurists in Germany?
I have not made a count, but I would say no, not so many. Generally, I think there are less women somehow who make it long term through the field than men.
Yeah. Well, so let's look at it from the point of view of futurists as agents of change. We tend not to consider ourselves in our work agents of change, although I must say I do consider myself somebody who is doing this for a purpose, not because I want to work in this space.
Me too. Hands up.
So I'm thinking, right? This is just one of my crazy ideas that comes up from time to time. So you have an opportunity because you actually have in your hand, quote unquote, a woman president in a country that's seen, certainly in terms of the developing countries, is seen as a country that has some power, right?
Yes.
So as the woman president, she has convocating power. For one, for all the other woman prime ministers or presidents, ex or current. If she called a meeting, they would come, right?
Yeah.
So you think we could just say, listen, as of today, we're going to work very hard to have her convene a summit, if you will, of women presidents, prime ministers, and other women who are, let's say, in key positions of leadership around the issue of climate change, for example, and some futurists, and have a conversation on the futures of women and climate change, and have that be a sort of a new global conversation that could probably be lead a different sort of organization, because we have several women's organizations, but again, they tend to work on their various issues, and they tend to work in an old-fashioned style. And as futurists, we may want to drive a different way of working. Do you think that this is something that's totally impossible, and that will help us arrive closer to the target of 2030?
I'm thinking, Claire. We started where we left off. Trying to get Angela to lead. It will be hard. She's very busy at the moment, to put her busy with trying to win the next election, which is next year, and she might not be back. So that's a tight window of opportunity we have. However, there's also other strong women in Germany. There's the Green Party, which has lobbied strongly for climate change effects and climate change mitigation adaptation.
Yes.
So there might be other women also we could turn to, maybe not to put it on Angela alone. You will have ideas.
She have to be very strong to carry the weight of Germany, Europe, and the world.
Yeah, but one has to say, I have no complaints about Angela Merkel, I have to say. I think she did a fantastic job and historic work in how she dealt with the refugee crisis.
Yes.
And also just the solidarity. It was very important for me to see this female chancellor here.
Yes.
But she has not been the strongest advocate of women's issues. It has not been the top priority. She had other top priorities, which is, I think, also in a way understandable. So I don't know how high our chances. But maybe it's what I really like about the idea is sort of this. You immediately jump to the next step, which I think is correct in what we should do in our work as futurists, saying, how can I make this happen? So if I see this, so what can I do to contribute? So and us also joining forces. I like this idea of you saying, okay, can we maybe join forces on this and together try to create this? So to reach out also and join forces with women in other countries who think in the same direction, who understand what is the ultimate future target, and try to create that change.
Yeah,
I
I
think
do.
it's a very critical reaction you are actually, that's
Well,
symbolic of how we should approach it.
yeah, because if we're saying that the future is female, and we're saying it, and we're okay, so there's street protests against something, but it's not only what the protests are against, it's what the protests are for.
Yes.
One of the things that I came across recently is that scientific evidence rather says that the right hemisphere of the brain, which governs systems thinking and empathy and emotion, is more developed in women than it is in men. And so, and if that's really scientific fact, and we are trying to get to a more sustainable future, it would seem to me that women as leaders in more spaces of leadership, wherever that may be, in the church, in the government, in corporate, in private sector, and NGOs, certainly could have made that kind of human paradigm shift towards a thriving future. So on that note, do you think really we have enough women now at the tipping point that women will cease to try leading like men, which I think has been the case in the past? In other words, or do we have enough women now where we can actually lead as women? Am I making sense? Because I think in the past, a lot of women, back in the 80s, the suits, the power suits, etc. And you're seeing women now shifting away from power suits. In fact, the symbol now is a pink pea hat. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that in itself is a little bit out there. So do you think we have enough women sort of in this space of leadership and owning their power that we can now lead as women?
I think it's not yet enough. Also, again, looking back just at the boards, I see the CEO, executive boardrooms, I see the ministry decision-making circles, I see it's not enough. It's clearly not yet there. So we need to work hard and we need to push in, and we need to do everything we can to get this younger generation and what's my generation to go into these circles of power, to have a change. And then on the question of the right brain, left side of the brain type of leadership, the more cooperative model maybe. I think it's a sort of, how do you say, two-sided sword. It's a very ambivalent an issue I'm ambivalent about, because on the one hand, for example, in the leadership debate, there's also been a strong movement saying there is a female kind of leadership, and arguing a lot that the women are so much more cooperative and they perceive the emotions more and they are more empathic and they can communicate better and so on. However, I've also seen that in many corporate or institutional cultures, this can actually be problematic because in a way, it perpetuates old role attributions. So it perpetuates a traditional attribution of roles to men and women, just now saying this is very good for leadership now, and this is the good kind of new way of leadership. So personally, what I would like to see is less of a discussion of this soft side in a sort of dichotomy of male and female, but just allowing men, pushing more for variety. I also see many males in leadership who are struggling with that they cannot show what is now attributed as a softer female side. And so they struggle with the same problem. And I think it would benefit us all if we become much more complex in how we view personality attributes and how they play into leadership, and much more varied, and accept that it cuts across the genders and so on. So it's a two-legged sword, so to speak. On the other hand, I think the fact that we all see this, and that yes, it is a different communication style that the women usually use and so on. You can also cite sources for this. I think there is a
I would say my communication style tends to be pretty direct, and so
See?
probably it's my more masculine side that comes out in communication.
Yeah.
Even though I cry a lot in meetings, so therefore
Yeah.
I'm maybe one of those people who are living in 2000 world. So as we think about this, now this idea that we will have to decide what it is the future we want.
Yes.
The 2030 goals have said, okay, the countries supposedly did, dialogues and figure out, okay, we do want these targets. So I want you to jump straight into 2030 and share with me a headline that you would like to see, or or you believe we would see. In other words, even if you wouldn't like to see it, you believe we would see it. So either one. So tell me, and you can either be optimistic, pessimistic, or neutralistic. I've made up that word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought of
So give me
two.
a headline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one is that in 2030 we would see the opening of the Museum of Patriarchy in Washington. So we can go and visit this because it's over, and the younger generation will look at it and say, "Oh, look, the strange things they did. It's not understandable to me, but
A
you will
museum
have
of
little
patriarchy?
things." Sorry?
The Museum of Patriarchy, you said?
Yes, the Museum of Patriarchy will open to explain that we did this once and it's over now, and it was strange why we did it, but we did it. But it will be over, huh? And the second one would be that choosing your gender would be implemented as a human right.
No,
So
no.
this
What did
is
you say? Let me hear. Achieving your gender?
choosing your gender. So you
What?
can choose whether you are male, female, something in between, a gender you make up yourself.
But
And
that's what
this
but isn't that happening already? People are choosing to be transgendered, so they're really choosing their gender.
exactly.
But
And so
so
I
what's
hope
gonna
in
be different then?
2030 would become a global human right. uh, So it's a
Ah,
global human right in 2030, and we are seeing much more diversity across the genders and much more open choice for how you attribute yourself in
ah,
terms of the gender you are in all nations. Now it's, I think, a Western phenomenon more or less, not completely, I'm aware, but still rather niche. It has made the big news in the US, I know, in the last 2 years and so on. And also
yes.
here we have had improvements, but still far away from being able to choose. You still have to make your cross male or female. So that's the dichotomy we're thinking in. And to imagine in 2030 it's a human right to choose and to attribute yourself, I think that would be a good thing to work towards.
Well, I can say that's a kind of interesting place to end, because you might have heard about this new book, which is called Homo Deus, Man as God. And I think usually when we see films or books about the future, they're always dark and dystopian.
Yes.
So, but the abundance movement says that there'll be enough talent and treasure to create a thriving opportunity. So, in one word, then, do you think the future of 2030 is going to be um, an optimistic one? Do you hold an optimistic view? Do you have a pessimistic view, a more dystopian view? Or do you think we will more or less be modeling along the way we are today?
I have an optimistic view, so yes, it's going to be better, but I feel the pressure. We have to keep up the work. So the yes is not one that can you cannot allow it to draw you into complacency.
Yeah.
That would be, it has to be a yes that activates you and
Mm.
that pushes you towards doing something for the kind of future you want.
Well, I think, folks, that has certainly been interesting and conversation with Cornelia Dahim. You have heard her two headlines. One, the Museum of Patriarchy will open in Washington, D.C., and you know how many museums we have. We have Science Fiction Museum and all sorts of museums. So, Museum of Women's History,
Yes.
we have a Museum of Patriarchy. And another headline she perceives for the future will be that choosing your gender will become a global human right. So we want to say thank you, Cornelia Dahim, of the Futures Impacts Consulting in Germany, for joining us today, and for sharing your insight and foresight about how the futures of women might emerge to 2030. Any last words of wisdom?
First of all, thank you so much, Claire. Thanks also to the listeners, and I'm looking forward to the other conversations you're having. I think it's a key topic, and I'm very curious what will come up and what kind of headlines we'll see. Yeah? So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
and words of wisdom are hard, but I think choose your future and work towards it.
Choose
your future. Choose the future you want and work towards it today.
Thank you so much. So, folks, we want to thank you for listening to another edition of the Future Sense Now on this online zine of the Futures Forum, where we strive to bring more diverse voices of those who are helping to shape our shared future. Today's guest was Cornelia Daheim of Germany. And as we leave you to ponder your own path and plans for the construction of the future, I invite you to remember that the future is embedded in the landscape of both the past and the present, and we should face the future with faith. Thank you so much for listening. Until then, safe journey.
You have been listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson, brought to you by the Futures Forum. For more, please visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Thank you for listening. Spread the word. Share the future.